The massive alien ship appeared in Earth's sky like a dark mountain made of metal and crystal. It was bigger than any city Li Na had ever seen. The ship cast shadows over the space station where she waited with her team. Na looked out the window at the alien vessel and felt her heart beat faster. Today would change everything for humanity. Na was 28 years old and worked as a diplomat for Earth's government. She had short black hair and wore a simple blue uniform. Before becoming a diplomat, she had been a fighter. She won gold medals in martial arts competitions around the world. But those days seemed far away now as she faced something much more dangerous than any human opponent. The aliens called themselves the Catherian Empire. They had sent messages to Earth 3 days ago. The messages were simple and terrifying. Submit to our rule or we will destroy your world. They gave humanity 1 week to decide. Nah, they are ready for us, said Park Tae. He was her military advisor and had been her friend since they were children. Tae was tall and serious, with worry lines around his eyes. He carried a briefcase full of documents that might help in the negotiations. Kim Ro, the captain of their ship, walked over to them. He was older than the others and had gray hair. The aliens want us to board their ship in 1 hour. They say we can bring 5 people maximum. Yoon Sol, their communications specialist, looked up from her computer. She was the youngest member of their team at 24. I have been listening to their radio signals. They are not planning to negotiate. They think humans are weak and stupid. Choi Ben, their engineer, shook his head. Their technology is far beyond ours. Their weapons could destroy our entire planet in minutes. We need to be very careful. Na nodded. She had read all the reports about the Catherian Empire. They had conquered 47 different worlds in the past 100 years. Every species that fought them was either destroyed or enslaved. No one had ever defeated them in battle. The aliens were reptilian creatures that stood over 8 feet tall. Their skin was covered in natural crystal armor that could stop most weapons. They had 4 arms and eyes that glowed red in the dark. Most terrifying of all, they lived for conquest. They believed that only the strong deserved to rule the universe. We should try to find some middle ground, Tae said. Maybe we can offer them something they want instead of complete surrender. What could we possibly offer them? Ben asked. They have technology that is thousands of years ahead of ours. They have conquered dozens of worlds. What do we have that they need? Na was quiet as she listened to her team talk. She knew they were scared. She was scared too. But she also knew that fear would not save humanity. Sometimes the only way to survive was to show strength. Even when you felt weak, 1 hour later they boarded a small shuttle and flew to the alien ship. The Catherian vessel was even more impressive up close. It was covered in spikes and had weapons pointing in every direction. The ship looked like it was built for war and nothing else. They docked at a small port on the side of the massive ship. The doors opened with a hiss and they stepped inside. The air smelled strange, like metal and sulfur. The corridors were huge and dark, designed for creatures much larger than humans. 2 Catherian guards met them at the entrance. The aliens were even more frightening in person. They towered over the humans, and their crystal armor reflected the dim lights in the corridor. Their red eyes stared down at the humans like they were looking at insects. The guards led them through the ship without saying a word. Na noticed that the walls were covered in symbols and pictures. Many of the pictures showed Catherian warriors standing over defeated enemies. Some enemies looked like humans, but others were completely alien. All of them were dead or kneeling in surrender. They walked for what felt like hours through the massive ship. Finally, they reached a huge chamber with a high ceiling. At the far end of the room sat a throne made of black crystal. On the throne was the largest Catherian Na had ever seen. I am Supreme Overlord Vextar, the alien said. His voice was deep and sounded like grinding stones. You are the representatives of the human species? Na stepped forward. Yes, I am Lina, diplomat for the Earth government. We have come to discuss your ultimatum, Vextar laughed. The sound was horrible, like metal scraping against metal. Discuss? There is nothing to discuss. You will surrender completely, or we will destroy every human world. Those are your only choices. Surely we can find some other arrangement, Tay said. Humans have skills and knowledge that might be useful to your empire. Another Catherian stepped forward from the shadows. This one was even larger than Vexstar and covered in scars. I am Champion Drakemo. I have defeated the champions of 47 worlds. Your species offers nothing we do not already possess. Na looked around the chamber. There were hundreds of other Catherians watching from galleries above. They all looked amused, as if the humans were providing entertainment rather than serious negotiation. Your mistake is thinking that conquest is the only path to strength, Na said. Cooperation and alliance can make both sides stronger. Vexstar stood up from his throne. He was at least 9 feet tall. Cooperation is for the weak. The strong take what they want. The weak submit or die. This is the natural order of the universe. If you truly believe that, Na said, then prove it. The chamber fell silent. Even the guards stopped moving. Na could hear her own heart beating in the quiet. Prove it? Vexstar asked. Your empire conquers through strength. You say humans are weak, but you have never actually tested that claim against us. You make assumptions based on our size and technology. But true strength comes from more than size or weapons. Drakemo stepped closer to Na, his red eyes glowed brighter. Are you challenging the might of the Catherian Empire, little human? I am proposing that you prove your superiority the way your culture respects most, single combat. Your champion against ours. If you win, humanity will surrender as you demand. If we win, you will negotiate with us as equals. The Catherians in the galleries began to murmur and hiss. Some of them were laughing. The idea that a human could defeat their champion seemed impossible to them. Vexstar was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Very well. But when our champion tears you apart, your species will serve as slaves for 1,000 years. Who will be your champion? Drakemo asked. Now looked back at her team. Tay was shaking his head. Ben looked terrified. Sol was staring at her with wide eyes. Kimro just nodded slowly. I will, Na said. The laughter from the galleries was immediate and loud. Even Vexstar chuckled. You, a small female? This is your champion? This is our champion, Na confirmed. Drak single quotes Mole flexed his forearms. Each arm was thicker than Na's entire body. I have killed creatures 10 times your size, human. I have crushed warriors whose armor was harder than diamond. You will not last 10 seconds against me. Maybe, Na said. But I only need 1 second. To win, the laughter grew louder. But Nen noticed that Vexstar was not laughing anymore. He was studying her carefully. The combat will take place in 1 hour, Vexstar announced. Prepare yourself, human champion. You are about to learn why no species has ever defeated the Catherian Empire. As the guards led them away, Tay grabbed Na's arm. What are you doing? You cannot possibly win against that monster. Na looked back. At the throne room one more time, maybe not. But someone has to try. And sometimes the impossible is just something no one has done yet. The Catherians gave them a small room to prepare for the combat. The walls were made of the same dark metal as the rest of the ship. There was one table, a few chairs, and a small window that looked out into space. Na sat on one of the chairs, while her team gathered around her. This is insane, Tay said. He was pacing back and forth across the room. Drakemo is 3 times your size. He has 4 arms. His skin is covered in crystal armor that can stop bullets. How do you plan to fight something like that? Na was quiet. She was thinking about everything she had learned about the Catherians. They were strong and fast, but they relied on their natural advantages. They did not expect opponents to be clever or quick. Sol was typing on her computer. I have been analyzing the data we collected about Catherian physiology. Their crystal armor is very strong, but it has weak points. The joints between the crystals are softer. Also, their eyes are sensitive to bright light. That is helpful, Na said. What else did you find? Their fighting style is based on overwhelming force. They charge at their enemies and try to crush them quickly. They do not usually fight long battles. Most of their opponents surrender or die within the first few minutes. Kim Rowe was looking out the window. I have seen the recordings of Dracomol's previous fights. He has never fought anyone who lasted more than 5 minutes. Most of his opponents are dead within 2 minutes. Ben was working on his tablet. I have been studying the arena where the fight will take place. It is a large circular space with multiple levels. There are weapon racks around the edges and environmental hazards throughout. The Catherians designed it to favor their natural advantages. Na stood up and began to stretch. Her muscles felt tense, but her mind was becoming clearer. Tell me about the weapons. Traditional Catherian combat weapons, Ben said. Plasma spears, crystal swords, energy shields. All of them are designed for creatures with 4 arms and great strength. They will be difficult for a human to use effectively. What about the environmental hazards? Gravity shifts in certain areas. Some platforms that move up and down. A few energy barriers that can be activated or deactivated. The arena is designed to be unpredictable, Na nodded. She had fought in many different environments during her martial arts career. The key was always to adapt quickly and use whatever advantages were available. There is something else, Sol said quietly. I intercepted some communications between the Catherian commanders. They are already making plans for Earth's conquest. They have divided our planet into sectors and assigned governors. They think this fight is just a formality. Tay stopped pacing. That means they are not taking you seriously. They think you will lose quickly. Good, Na said. Overconfidence is a weakness I can use. Kim Rowe turned away from the window. Na, I have known you since we were children. I have seen you fight in competitions around the world. You are the best martial artist I have ever known. But this is different. This is not a sport with rules and referees. Drakemole will try to kill you, Na looked at each of her friends. She could see the fear in their eyes. They cared about her and did not want to watch her die. But they also understood what was at stake. If she lost, humanity would become slaves to the Catherian Empire. I know the odds are against me, Na said. But I have advantages that Drakemole does not expect. I am faster than him. I am more flexible. Most importantly, I can think and adapt during the fight. He relies on his size and strength. When those fail him, he will not know what to do. But what if they are enough? Tay asked. What if his size and strength are too much for speed and intelligence to overcome? Na was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled. Then humanity will know that we did not surrender without a fight. Sometimes that is worth more than victory. A loud sound echoed through the room. It was a gong calling them to the arena. Na's heart began to beat faster, but her hands were steady. She had felt this way before every important competition. Nervous but focused, they walked through the corridors of the ship toward the arena. More Catherians had gathered to watch the fight. They lined the hallways, pointing at Na and making sounds that might have been laughter. Some of them had clearly never seen a human before. They seemed amazed that such a small creature would dare to challenge their greatest champion. The arena was even larger than Ben had described. It was like a giant bowl with seats rising up on all sides. Thousands of Catherians filled the seats, all of them excited to see their champion destroy another opponent. The noise was incredible, like standing inside a thunderstorm. The fighting area was in the center of the arena. It was circular and about the size of a football field. There were platforms at different heights connected by ramps and bridges. Weapon racks were placed around the edges, filled with alien weapons that gleamed in the bright lights. Supreme, Overlord Vextar stood in a special box high above the arena. His voice boomed through speakers that made it loud enough for everyone to hear. Citizens of the Catherian Empire, he announced. Today we witness another conquest. The humans have foolishly chosen to challenge our might. Their champion will face our greatest warrior in honorable combat. When she falls, as all our enemies fall, humanity will join the countless species that serve our empire. The crowd cheered and stamped their feet. The sound was so loud that Na could feel it in her bones. "Behold," Vextar continued, "the undefeated champion Drakemole." A gate opened on one side of the arena. Drakemole walked out slowly, raising all four of his arms to acknowledge the crowd's cheers. He was even more impressive in the arena than he had been in the throne room. His crystal armor caught the lights and threw them back in brilliant flashes. He carried no weapons, confident that his natural strength would be enough. "And here," Vextar said, "is the human who dares to challenge him." Another gate opened and Na walked into the arena. The cheering stopped immediately. The silence was almost as loud as the noise had been. Thousands of alien eyes stared down at her. She looked very small and fragile in the huge space. Na wore simple human combat gear, flexible clothing that would not restrict her movement, and light boots that would help her move quickly across different surfaces. She carried no weapons, just like Drakemole. She walked to the center of the arena where Drakemole was waiting. Up close, he was even more intimidating. His red eyes glowed as he looked down at her. His crystal armor was thick and covered with sharp edges. Each of his four arms ended in claws that could tear through metal. "Last chance, little human," Drakemole said. His voice was like rocks grinding together. "Surrender now, and I will make your death quick." Na looked up at him without fear. "I have a better idea. When I win, you can tell your people that size is not everything," Drakemole laughed. It was a terrible sound that echoed through the arena. "When you are dead, no one will remember your name." Vextar's voice boomed again. "The rules are simple. Fight until one surrenders or dies. No outside assistance. All weapons in the arena are available for use. Let the combat begin." A bell rang to start the fight. The crowd fell silent, waiting to see how quickly their champion would destroy the small human. Na and Drakemole stood facing each other in the center of the arena. Neither of them moved for several seconds. Na was studying her opponent, looking for weaknesses and planning her strategy. Drakemole was enjoying the moment, confident in his inevitable victory. Then Drakemole charged. The arena was a masterpiece of Catherian engineering designed for brutal combat. The main fighting area was circular and covered with different types of surfaces. Some areas had metal flooring with good grip, while others were smooth stone that could be slippery. Platforms of various heights were connected by ramps, bridges, and stairs. Around the edges of the arena were weapon racks filled with traditional Catherian combat tools. There were plasma spears that could cut through armor, crystal swords that never dulled, and energy shields that could deflect most attacks. The weapons were all designed for creatures with 4 arms and great strength. Above the fighting area were environmental controls that could change the battle conditions. Gravity fields could be increased or decreased in certain zones. Energy barriers could be raised to block movement or attacks. Some platforms could move up and down, creating new tactical opportunities. The arena had seen the deaths of champions from 47 different worlds. The floor was stained with the blood of countless warriors who had fallen to Catherian might. The walls were decorated with trophies taken from defeated enemies. Weapons, armor, and skulls from dozens of different species hung like decorations. In the highest seats of the arena sat the most important Catherians. War commanders, governors of conquered worlds, and nobles who had grown rich from the Empire's conquests. They had come to see another victory for their champion and another species added to their list of slaves. Lower in the stands were common soldiers and workers. They cheered loudly for their champion and made jokes about the small human who dared to challenge him. Many of them had never seen a human before. They were amazed that such tiny creatures had managed to build space ships and cities. Broadcasting equipment throughout the arena sent images of the fight to every world in the Catherian Empire. Billions of aliens would watch as their champion destroyed this human challenger. It was meant to be a lesson to any species that might think about resisting Catherian rule. Na looked around the arena and took in every detail: the layout, the weapons, the hazards, and the watching crowd. She had fought in many different environments during her martial arts career, but nothing like this. This arena was designed to kill. She noticed that most of the weapons were too heavy for her to use effectively. The plasma spears were nearly as tall as she was and required great strength to wield properly. The crystal swords were thick and designed for creatures with much larger hands than hers, but she also noticed things that the arena designers had not considered. The different levels and platforms could provide advantages to someone who was quick and agile. The environmental hazards that were meant to make the fight more dangerous could also be used as weapons if someone was clever enough. Most importantly, she noticed that the arena was designed for opponents who fought like Cytherians, powerful creatures who relied on overwhelming force and direct attacks. The layout favored those who could leap great distances and strike with massive strength. It was not designed for someone who fought with speed, intelligence, and precision. Na moved to a position where she could retreat quickly in any direction. She kept her knees slightly bent and her weight balanced on the balls of her feet. Her hands were relaxed but ready to react instantly to any attack. Drakemel stood in the center of the arena like a mountain of crystal and muscle. He flexed all four of his arms and roared a challenge that echoed off the arena walls. The crowd responded with cheers and stamping feet that shook the entire structure. The champion had never lost a fight in over 200 battles. He had killed opponents twice his size and crushed warriors wearing the strongest armor in the galaxy. Many of his victories had lasted less than a minute. He expected this fight to be even shorter. "Look at her," Drakemel called out to the crowd. "She trembles with fear like all the others." But Na was not trembling with fear. She was trembling with controlled energy, like a spring wound tight and ready to release. Her muscles were loose and ready to move in any direction. Her mind was calm and focused on the task ahead. Supreme Overlord Vexstar watched from his box high above the arena. He had seen hundreds of these combats over the years. They usually followed the same pattern. The challenger would try to fight with honor and courage, but they would be overwhelmed by Cytherian's superior strength and skill. This fight would be no different, but something about the human's posture made him pay closer attention. She did not stand like the other challengers he had seen. She did not look desperate or afraid. She looked like she was waiting for something. Tay, Sol Ben, and Kimro watched from a special viewing area reserved for the challenger's team. They could see everything clearly, but they were too far away to help. All they could do was watch and hope that Na had a plan that could overcome impossible odds. "She looks so small down there," Sol whispered. "How can she possibly win against that monster?" "She has surprised people before," Kimro said. "Remember the World Championships when everyone said she was too small to compete against the heavyweight fighters? She won anyway." "This is different," Ben said. "Those were human opponents fighting under human rules. This is a creature from another world with natural advantages that no human can match." Tay was quiet as he watched Na position herself in the arena. He had known her since they were children and had seen her fight many times. She was always at her best when the odds were against her. But these odds seemed impossible even for her. The time for talk was over. Vexstar raised his hand to signal the beginning of combat. The arena fell silent except for the hum of the broadcasting equipment and the sound of thousands of aliens breathing in anticipation. "Citizens of the Empire," Vexstar announced, "witness the power of Cytherian might. Let the combat begin." A deep bell rang 3 times to start the fight. The sound echoed through the arena and then faded into silence. For a moment neither fighter moved. They stood studying each other across the combat area. Drakemel was confident and patient. He had time to toy with his opponent before finishing. The human looked even smaller and more fragile now that the fight had officially begun. He decided to end this quickly and move on to the real business of conquering Earth. Na was using these precious seconds to finalize her strategy. She had studied Drakemel's previous fights and knew how he liked to attack. He would charge forward using his superior reach and strength to overwhelm his opponents. Most challengers tried to meet his charge head-on and were crushed immediately. She would not make that mistake. Drakemel suddenly roared and charged across the arena floor. His forearms spread wide to grab or strike the human before she could escape. His crystal armor caught the arena lights and threw them back in brilliant flashes. He looked like a force of nature, unstoppable and deadly. The crowd erupted in cheers as their champion attacked. This was what they had come to see. The moment when Catherian superiority would be demonstrated once again for all the galaxy to witness. Na watched Drakemel charge toward her and did not move until the last possible second. When Drakemel charged, Na did something that no Catherian expected. Instead of running away or trying to block his attack, she moved toward him. But she did not meet his charge directly. At the last second, she dropped low and rolled to one side, letting his momentum carry him past her. Dr. Single quotes Mole crashed into the arena wall where Na had been standing a moment before. His crystal armor rang like a bell as it hit the metal surface. The crowd gasped in surprise. Their champion had missed completely. Na was already moving before Drakemel could turn around. She ran toward one of the elevated platforms and leaped onto it with the grace of a dancer. From this higher position, she could see the entire arena and plan her next move. Drakemel roared in anger and embarrassment. No opponent had ever made him miss on his first attack. He charged toward the platform where Na stood, intending to leap up and crush her, but when he jumped, Na was no longer there. She had moved to a different platform connected by a narrow bridge. Drakemel landed heavily where she had been, and the platform shook under his weight. "Stand still and fight, coward." Drakemel shouted. Na said nothing. She was focused completely on the battle, watching for opportunities and staying one step ahead of her much larger opponent. She moved from platform to platform, always keeping some distance between herself and Drakemel. The crowd was becoming restless. This was not the quick, brutal victory they had expected. The human was running away instead of fighting. Some Catherians began to boo and call for their champion to end the fight quickly, but others were beginning to see something different. The human was not just running randomly. Her movements were precise and purposeful. She was using the arena's layout to her advantage, staying away from Drakemel's strengths while looking for weaknesses. Drakemel grabbed a plasma spear from one of the weapon racks. The weapon was as long as Na's entire body and glowed with deadly energy. He hurled it at her with all his strength. Na saw the spear coming and dropped flat against the platform. The weapon passed over her head and embedded itself in the arena wall with a shower of sparks. The crowd cheered at the impressive display of strength. Even though it had missed its target, Na rolled to her feet and jumped to another platform. She was beginning to understand the rhythm of the fight. Drakemel was powerful and fast, but he was also predictable. He relied on overwhelming force and expected his opponents to panic under pressure. 15 minutes into the fight, Drakemel was becoming frustrated. The human kept avoiding his attacks and would not stand still long enough for him to use his superior strength. He had never fought an opponent who moved like this before. He decided to use the arena's environmental controls to limit the human's movement. He activated an energy barrier that blocked off several of the platforms, forcing Na into a smaller area. Na found herself trapped on a platform with only one way down. Drakemel stood at the bottom of the ramp, blocking her escape route. His red eyes glowed with satisfaction. Finally, he had cornered his prey. "Nowhere to run now, little human," Drakemel said. "Time to die like all the others." He began to climb the ramp toward her, moving slowly to savor the moment. The crowd grew quiet in anticipation of the final blow, but Na was not finished yet. She picked up a small crystal from the platform floor, probably a piece that had broken off from some previous battle. She threw it at one of the arena's control panels. The crystal hit the panel and triggered a gravity field shift. Suddenly, the gravity in Drakemel's area doubled, making him much heavier than normal. He stumbled and fell to one knee under the increased weight. Na used this opportunity to leap over Drakemel's head and land behind him. Before he could turn around, she struck him in the back of his neck, right at the joint between two pieces of crystal armor. Drakemel roared in pain and anger. It was the first time in the fight that the human had actually hurt him. He spun around and swung all four arms at once, trying to catch her in a devastating attack, but Na was already moving. Again. She ducked under his arms and struck him in the side, targeting another weak point in his armor. Then she rolled away before he could grab her. The crowd was now completely silent. They could not believe what they were seeing. The small human was not only avoiding their champion's attacks, she was actually fighting back. And her attacks were precise, targeting the few vulnerable spots in Drakemol's armor. 30 minutes into the fight, both fighters were breathing hard. Drakemol was frustrated and angry. He had never been in a fight that lasted this long. Most of his opponents were dead within the first few minutes. Na was tired, but focused. Every movement cost her energy, and she knew she could not keep running forever. But she was learning things about Drakemol that no other opponent had lived. Long enough to discover his crystal armor was strong, but it was also heavy. The longer the fight went on, the more it would slow him down. His forearms gave him great reach, but they also made him awkward when he tried to change direction quickly. Most importantly, he was used to winning through intimidation and overwhelming force. He had no experience with opponents who fought intelligently. Drakemol grabbed another weapon from the racks, this time choosing a massive crystal sword. The blade was as long as Na was tall and sharp enough to cut through metal. He swung it in wide arcs, trying to corner Na against the arena walls. Na stayed just outside the range of his attacks, moving constantly to avoid being trapped. She could feel the wind from the sword as it passed close to her body. One mistake would mean instant death, but she was also watching Drakemol's movements carefully. The heavy sword was making him slower and more predictable. He was putting everything into each swing, leaving himself momentarily vulnerable after each attack. 45 minutes into the fight, Na made her first real offensive move. When Drakemol swung the sword in a wide arc, she ducked under it and ran straight at him. Before he could bring the sword back around, she leaped up and struck him in the face with both feet. The impact was not enough to seriously hurt him, but it knocked him backward and made him lose his grip on the sword. The weapon clattered across the arena floor. Out of his reach, Na landed gracefully and immediately moved away from Drakemol. She had proven something important. She could hurt him if she chose the right moment and the right target. The crowd was now murmuring among themselves. This was not going the way anyone had expected. Their champion was supposed to be invincible, but the human was matching him move for move. Supreme Overlord Vexstar leaned forward in his box, watching the fight, more carefully than he had watched any combat in years. The human was doing something no opponent had ever done before. She was making Drakemol look ordinary. 50 minutes into the fight, Drakemol was getting desperate. He abandoned all strategy and began attacking wildly, using his claws and teeth as well as his fists. He was trying to use his natural weapons to catch the human in a lucky blow, but desperation made him sloppy. His attacks became easier to predict and avoid. Na began to strike back more often, targeting his joints and the softer areas around his eyes. At 57 minutes, Na saw her chance. Drakemol had been fighting so hard for so long that his movements were becoming sluggish. His crystal armor, which had protected him throughout the fight, was now weighing him down. He made a wild grab for her with all four arms, putting everything he had into one final attack. Na waited until he was completely committed to the move. Then she struck. She hit him in the throat with perfect precision, right at the soft spot just below his jaw. The blow cut off his air supply and sent shock waves through his nervous system. Drakemol staggered backward, gasping for breath. Before he could recover, Na struck again. This time she hit the nerve cluster behind his left knee, causing his leg to buckle. The great champion fell to one knee, struggling to breathe and unable to stand. Na moved behind him and applied a chokehold that no Catherian had ever seen before. It was a technique from human martial arts that used leverage and pressure points to control much larger opponents. Drakemol tried to shake her off, but he was exhausted and running out of air. His movements became weaker and more desperate. Finally, his eyes rolled back and he collapsed to the arena floor, unconscious. The arena was completely silent. Thousands of Catherians stared in shock at their fallen champion. The undefeatable Drakemol lay motionless on the floor, Defeated by a creature one-third his size, Na stood over her fallen opponent, breathing hard but victorious. She looked up at the silent crowd and then at Supreme Overlord Vexstar in his box. "High above, it is finished," she called out. "I claim victory according to your laws." The silence stretched on for long seconds. Then, slowly, the reality of what had happened began to sink in throughout the arena. The impossible had occurred. A human had defeated the champion of the Catherian Empire. The silence in the arena was so complete that Na could hear her own heartbeat. Thousands of Catherians stared down at the impossible scene before them. Their undefeated champion lay unconscious on the arena floor, defeated by a creature they had dismissed as weak and insignificant. Na stood over Dracomal's motionless form, her chest rising and falling as she caught her breath. Sweat covered her face and her uniform was torn in several places, but she was alive and victorious. She had done what no being in the galaxy had ever accomplished. Supreme Overlord Vexstar rose slowly from his throne in the high box. His red eyes glowed with an emotion that none of his subjects had ever seen before. For the first time in his long life, he was uncertain. The natural order of Catherian superiority had been challenged and found lacking. "Impossible," he whispered. But his voice carried through the arena's sound system for everyone to hear. The crowd began to murmur and shift restlessly. Some Catherians were angry at what they had witnessed. Others were confused and frightened. A few were beginning to look at the small human with something that might have been respect. Na looked up at Vexstar and raised her voice so that everyone in the arena could hear her. "According to your own laws, I have won this combat. Humanity will negotiate with your empire as equals, not as conquered subjects." Vexstar's expression darkened. His claws gripped the edge of his box so tightly that the metal began to bend. "You have won nothing, human. You have merely delayed the inevitable." "Your champion is defeated," Na replied calmly. "Honor your agreement." "My champion was caught off guard by your cowardly tactics?" Vexstar snarled. "You did not fight with honor?" "You ran and hid like a frightened animal." The crowd began to cheer at their leader's words. They wanted to believe that their champion had been defeated through trickery rather than genuine skill. The alternative was too disturbing to accept, but then an ancient voice spoke from the crowd. It belonged to War Prime Zulkin, the oldest and most respected military commander in the Empire. He was covered in scars from 1,000 battles and had never been defeated in combat. "The human fought according to our laws," Zulkin said. His voice was gravelly with age, but still carried the authority of centuries of command. She used the arena as it was designed to be used. She adapted to her opponent's strengths and exploited his weaknesses. This is what warriors do. Vexstar turned toward the old War Prime with fury in his eyes. "You would defend this creature?" "I defend our laws and our honor," Zulkin replied. "If we change the rules when we lose, we are no better than the weak. Species we conquer, the human won fairly." A murmur ran through the crowd. Zulkin was the most honored warrior in their history. His word carried enormous weight in matters of combat and honor, but Vexstar was not ready to accept defeat. His empire was built on the idea of Catherian superiority. If a human could defeat their greatest champion, what did that say about their right to rule the galaxy? "Very well," Vexstar said, his voice carrying a dangerous edge. "The human has defeated our champion. But there is another law that applies to this situation. An ancient law that has not been invoked in 1,000 years. Na felt a chill run down her spine. Something in Vexstar's tone told her that her victory had only made things worse. "The trial of dominance," Vexstar announced. "When a challenger defeats our champion, they may be called upon to prove their worthiness through extended combat. The challenger must face our greatest warriors one by one until they fall or claim ultimate victory." The crowd erupted in cheers. This was a law that few remembered, but it offered a way to maintain Catherian honor while still destroying the human who had embarrassed them. War Prime Zulkin frowned. "The trial of dominance has not been used since the conquest of the Voldari homeworld. It is meant for worthy opponents who have proven themselves capable of challenging the Empire itself. And this human has done exactly that," Vexstar replied. By defeating Drakemole, she has claimed to be our equal. Now she must prove it. Na looked around the arena and realized that her situation had become much more dangerous. Defeating one champion had been difficult enough. Facing multiple opponents in succession might be impossible. What are the terms of this trial? She asked Vex Star. Smiled, showing his sharp teeth. You will face 5 more of our greatest warriors. Each one is more skilled than the last. You may rest for 5 minutes between each combat, but you may not leave the arena or receive outside assistance. If you defeat all 5, you will be recognized as a war prime of the Empire with all the rights and privileges that entails. And, if I refuse, then your victory over Drakemole is meaningless. Your species will be enslaved as originally planned. Na looked up at the viewing area where her team was watching. Tay's face was pale with worry. Sol was typing frantically on her computer, probably trying to find information about this ancient law. Ben and Kim Ro looked grim but determined. She thought about her options. She was already tired from the fight with Drakemole. Facing 5 more opponents would push her to the absolute limit of her abilities. But if she refused, everything she had accomplished would be for nothing. I accept the trial of dominance, Na said. The crowd roared its approval. They would get to see their warriors redeem themselves by destroying this upstart human. The natural order would be restored. Vexstar gestured to his guards. Remove Drakemole from the arena and prepare for the next combat. Bring forth War Captain Nexar. Medical attendants entered the arena and carried away the unconscious champion. Na watched them go and tried to prepare herself mentally for what was coming. She had 5 minutes to rest before facing her next opponent. She sat down on one of the platforms and tried to control her breathing. Her muscles were sore and she had several small cuts from near misses during the fight with Drakemole. But she was alive and her mind was clear. War Captain Nexar entered the arena to thunderous applause. He was smaller than Drakemole but moved with the fluid grace of a natural killer. His crystal armor was darker and more flexible than the champion's. He carried 2 curved swords that gleamed with energy. I have studied your fight with our champion, Nexar said as he approached Na. You are quick and clever. But I will not make the same mistakes he did. Na stood up and faced her. New opponent? What mistakes were those? He underestimated you. He fought with arrogance instead of skill. I will not be so foolish. The bell rang to begin the second combat. This time, neither fighter charged immediately. They circled each other slowly, each looking for an opening. Na could see that Nexar was indeed different from Drakemole. He moved with careful precision and kept his guard up at all times. His 2 swords gave him excellent reach and coverage. This fight would require a different strategy. Nexar attacked first, but not with the wild charge that Drakemole had used. He came forward steadily, using his swords to control the space around Na and limit her movement options. Na found herself being pushed backward toward the arena wall. Nexar was not trying to end the fight quickly. He was being patient and methodical. Wearing her down gradually, she realized that this opponent had learned from watching her previous fight. He was not going to give her the openings that Drakemole had provided. She would have to create her own opportunities. Na suddenly stopped retreating and moved to one side, trying to get around Nexar's guard. But he was ready for this and shifted to block her path. His swords moved in complex patterns that created a barrier of deadly energy. The fight went on for 20 minutes with neither combatant gaining a clear advantage. Nexar was skilled and disciplined, but Na was beginning to understand his fighting style. He was methodical but also predictable in his own way. When Nexar made a precise thrust with one sword, Na was ready. She deflected the blade with a piece of broken armor from the arena floor and struck him in the wrist. The blow numbed his hand and made him drop one of his weapons. With only one sword, Nexar was at a disadvantage. Na pressed her attack, using her speed to stay inside his guard where his longer weapon was less effective. After 10 more minutes of intense fighting, she managed to disarm him completely and force his surrender. The crowd was quieter this time. 2 victories in a row was harder to dismiss as luck or trickery. Bring forth War Captain Yelka. Vexstar commanded. Na's third opponent was a female Kitherian who fought with a style completely different from the first two. Yelka used energy whips that could extend to great lengths and strike from unexpected angles. She was fast and agile, using the arena's platforms and obstacles to her advantage. This fight lasted 35 minutes and pushed Na to her limits. Yelka's whips could strike from any direction and left burning marks wherever they touched. Na had to use every bit of her speed and agility to avoid being cut down. In the end, she won by using the arena's gravity controls against her opponent. When Yelka was in mid-leap between platforms, Na triggered a gravity increase that pulled her down hard against the arena floor. Before Yelka could recover, Na had her in a submission hold that forced her to surrender. 3 victories. The crowd was now completely silent. Bring forth War Captain Morden, Vexstar said. His voice had lost some of its confidence. The fourth opponent was the largest Kitherian Na had faced yet. Morden was even bigger than Drakewell and carried a massive warhammer that could shatter stone. But Na was. When War Prime Zul'Kan entered the arena, even the air seemed to change. The old warrior moved differently than the others Na had faced. There was no wasted motion, no unnecessary display of strength. Every step was precise and purposeful. Zul'Kan was ancient by Kitherian standards, but his body showed no signs of weakness. His crystal armor was scarred from countless battles, and his eyes held the wisdom of centuries of combat. He carried no weapons, relying instead on his natural claws and the combat techniques he had perfected over a lifetime of warfare. The crowd watched in respectful silence as their greatest living warrior took his position. Even those who had been cheering for Na's defeat now understood that they were witnessing something extraordinary. This was not just another combat trial. This was a clash between two completely different philosophies of warfare. Na was exhausted. She had been fighting for over 2 hours with only brief rests between opponents. Her body ached, and her reflexes were slower than they had been at the start. But her mind was clearer than ever. Each fight had taught her something new about Kitherian combat and about her own capabilities. "You have done well, human," Zul'Kan said as he approached. His voice was calm and respectful. "You have defeated 4 skilled warriors through intelligence and determination. But I am not like the others you have faced." "How are you different?" Na asked. "They fought with the arrogance of youth and the certainty of past victories. I fight with the wisdom of age and the knowledge of defeat. I have lost battles before, and I have learned from every loss." Na studied the old war prime carefully. He was right. The others had all shared certain characteristics. They had been overconfident, predictable in their own ways, and unable to adapt when their usual tactics failed. Zul'Kan was different. He moved like someone who had no assumptions about how the fight would go. "I know that you are tired," Zul'Kan continued. "I know that your human body is reaching its limits. But I also know that you have something inside you that the others did not understand. You fight not just for victory, but for something greater." "What do you think I fight for?" "Survival. Not just your own, but your entire species. That gives you strength that goes beyond muscle and bone." The bell rang to begin the 5th and final combat of the Trial of Dominance. Both fighters stood still for several seconds, each studying the other with the intensity of true warriors. Then they began to move. The fight that followed was unlike any that had taken place in the arena before. Zul'Kan did not charge or try to overwhelm Na with strength. Instead, he matched her move for move, counter for counter. When she tried to use her speed, he was ready. When she attempted to exploit his size, he turned it into an advantage. For the first time in the trial, Na found herself fighting an opponent who could predict her tactics. Zul'Kan had spent the previous fights studying her style and learning her preferences. He knew how she moved and how she thought. 20 minutes into the fight, Na realized that her usual strategies were not working. Zul'Kan was too experienced and too intelligent to fall for the same tricks that had defeated the others. She would have to find a completely new approach. She began to change her fighting style in the middle of the combat. Instead of relying on speed and evasion, she started to fight more aggressively. She took risks that she had avoided in the previous fights, trading potential injury for the chance to land decisive blows. Zul'Kan adapted to her new approach, but it took him time to adjust. During those precious seconds of uncertainty, Na managed to land several strikes that would have finished younger opponents. But the old war prime absorbed the punishment and continued fighting. 30 minutes into the fight, both combatants were showing signs of wear. Zul'Kan's movements were becoming slightly slower, and Na's attacks were losing some of their precision. The fight was becoming a test of endurance as much as skill. The crowd watched in amazement as the battle continued. They had never seen anyone match Zul'Kan for such a long period. The old war prime was a legend among their people, the warrior who had conquered more worlds than any other. Yet this small human was fighting him to a standstill. Na noticed that Zul'Kan was favoring his left side slightly. It was a subtle change that most opponents would never have detected, but her martial arts training had taught her to read body language like a book. The old warrior had an old injury that was affecting his movement. She began to focus her attacks on his left side, forcing him to move in ways that aggravated the old wound. It was a strategy that required patience and precision, but gradually it began to work. Zul'Kan's left arm became less responsive, and his guard on that side weakened, but Zul'Kan was not helpless. Even with his injury limiting him, he was still one of the most dangerous fighters in the galaxy. When Na moved in to exploit his weakness, he was ready with a counterattack that nearly ended the fight. His claws raked across Na's shoulder, tearing through her uniform and leaving 4 parallel cuts in her flesh. The pain was immediate and intense, but she managed to roll away before he could follow up with a finishing blow. Blood flowed down Na's arm, making it harder to grip and control her movements. But the injury also gave her something valuable, a clear understanding of just how dangerous her opponent remained. One mistake would be her last. 40 minutes into the fight, both warriors were operating on pure determination. Their bodies were pushed beyond normal limits, but neither was willing to surrender. Too much was at stake for either of them to give up. Na found herself thinking about everyone depending on her. Her team watching from the stands. The billions of humans back on Earth who did not even know this fight was happening. The future of her entire species rested on her ability to defeat this one opponent, but she also thought about something else. In all her previous fights, she had been fighting against enemies who saw her as inferior. Zul'Kan was different. He was fighting her as an equal, showing her the respect that a true warrior deserved. In a strange way, this made the fight both harder and more meaningful. 50 minutes into the fight, Na saw her opportunity. Zul'Kan had been compensating for his injured left side by putting more weight on his right leg. The constant strain was beginning to tell, and his stance was becoming less stable when he made a powerful strike with his right arm. Putting all his weight behind the attack, Na did not try to avoid it completely. Instead, she allowed the blow to graze her side while she struck his supporting leg with all her remaining strength. The impact sent shock waves through Zul'Kan's knee and ankle. His leg buckled and he fell to one knee, temporarily unable to support his weight. Na immediately moved behind him and applied a chokehold that cut off the blood flow to his brain. Zul'Kan struggled to break free, but he was off balance and weakened by the long fight. His movements became weaker as the lack of oxygen affected his thinking. Finally, his struggle ceased, and he went limp in Na's arms. Na held the chokehold for several more seconds to make sure he was truly unconscious, then released him and stepped back. The greatest warrior in Catherian history lay motionless on the arena floor, defeated by a human who weighed less than one of his arms. The arena was absolutely silent. No one cheered or booed. They were all trying to process what they had just witnessed. The impossible had become reality. A human had completed the trial of dominance. Na stood over Zul'Kan's unconscious form, swaying slightly from exhaustion and blood loss. Her uniform was torn and stained with blood, both her own and that of her opponents. But she was still standing, still victorious. She looked up at Supreme Overlord Vextar in his high box. The alien leader's face was a mask of shock and rage. His carefully ordered universe had been turned upside down by this small human female. According to your own ancient laws, Na called out, her voice carrying clearly through the silent arena, I have completed the trial of dominance. I claim the rank of War Prime and all the rights that come with it. Vexstar said nothing for long moments. His claws gripped the edge of his box so tightly that the metal began to crack. Finally he spoke, the trial is complete. The human has earned the rank of War Prime according to our laws. A murmur ran through the crowd. The implications of what had just happened were staggering. A human had not only defeated their greatest warriors, but had earned a position of authority within their own military hierarchy. Na felt the weight of her new status settling on her shoulders. She had come to this arena hoping to save her species from conquest. Instead, she had done something far more significant. She had changed the entire relationship between humanity and the Catherian Empire, but she also knew that her real work was just beginning. Having the rank of War Prime was one thing. Using that authority to create a better future for both species would be much more difficult. Medical attendants entered the arena to tend to Zul'Kan and to treat Na's injuries. As they worked on her shoulder, she looked up at her team in the viewing area. They were all staring at her with expressions of amazement and pride. She had done it. In just 2 hours, she had gone from being a diplomatic representative of a species marked for conquest to being a War Prime of the most powerful empire in the galaxy. Now she had to figure out what to do with that power. The medical attendants worked quickly to treat Na's injuries. They applied a gel that stopped the bleeding from her shoulder wounds and gave her a stimulant that helped clear the exhaustion from her mind. Even the Catherian medical technology was impressive, and Na felt her strength returning as they worked. While she received treatment, she could hear heated discussions throughout the arena. The Catherians were struggling to understand what had happened and what it meant for their empire. Many of them had never imagined that any non-Catherian could achieve the rank of War Prime. Supreme Overlord Vexstar descended from his high box and approached the arena floor. His expression was carefully controlled, but Na could see the anger burning in his red eyes. He was bound by his own laws to recognize her victory, but he clearly had no intention of making things easy for her. War Prime Na, he said, speaking her new title with obvious reluctance. You have earned your rank through combat according to our ancient traditions. However, earning the rank and keeping it are two different things. What do you mean? Na asked. A War Prime must command the respect of the warriors under their authority. You may have defeated our champions in single combat, but can you lead our armies? Can you make the difficult decisions that preserve the Empire? Can you earn the loyalty of soldiers who have never followed a non-Catherian leader? Na understood what he was really saying. He was challenging her ability to actually use her new rank effectively. Even if she was legally a War Prime, she would need to prove herself in ways that went far beyond combat skills. I am willing to face those challenges, Na replied. But first, we need to discuss the original reason for this meeting. The future relationship between humanity and the Catherian Empire. Vexstar's expression darkened. You think that your new rank changes everything? You are still one individual representing a weak species. What can you possibly offer the Empire that we cannot take by force? Before Na could answer, War Prime Zul'Kan approached them. The old warrior had regained consciousness and insisted on walking under his own power despite his injuries. His crystal armor was cracked in several places and he moved stiffly, but his eyes were clear and alert. Supreme Overlord, Zul'Kan said, I request permission to speak freely. Vexstar nodded grudgingly. Zul'Kan had earned the right to speak his mind through centuries of loyal service. I have fought in more battles than any living Catherian, Zul'Kan began. I have conquered worlds and crushed armies. I thought I understood what strength meant. But today, this human taught me something new. He turned to address the crowd as well as the Supreme Overlord. We have built our empire on the belief that physical power is the ultimate measure of worth. But War Prime Na defeated me not through greater strength, but through superior intelligence, adaptability, and determination. These are qualities we have overlooked in our conquests. You speak of admiration for an enemy, Vexstar said coldly. I speak of respect for a fellow warrior, Zulkan corrected. And I speak of opportunity for our empire. Think of what we could accomplish if we had allies with these human qualities instead of just more conquered slaves. Na seized on Zulkan's words. That is exactly what I am proposing. Not conquest or submission, but true alliance. Humans have capabilities that complement Cytherian strengths. Together we could achieve things that neither species could accomplish alone. Give me an example, Vextar demanded. Na thought quickly. She needed to present something that would appeal to the Cytherian mindset while demonstrating real value. Your empire is vast but difficult to govern, she said. You rule through fear and force, which requires constant military presence to maintain order. Human diplomatic and administrative skills could help you govern more effectively with fewer resources. Our methods have worked for centuries, Vextar replied. But they are also expensive and inefficient, Na countered. How many rebellions do you face each year? How many resources do you spend suppressing them? Humans could help you find ways to govern that create loyalty instead of just fear. Zulkan nodded approvingly. She makes a valid point. We lose more ships and warriors to rebellion suppression than to actual conquest. If there were better ways to maintain order, and what would humans gain from this alliance? Vextar asked. Protection, technology, and the chance to explore the galaxy as partners rather than prisoners, Na replied. Humans have always been curious about the universe beyond our world. An alliance would let us satisfy that curiosity while contributing to something greater than ourselves. Vextar was quiet for several minutes, considering her words. Around the arena, other Cytherians were discussing the proposal among themselves. Na could hear arguments on both sides of the issue. You present interesting ideas, Vextar finally said, but words are easy. How do we know that humans can deliver on these promises? Start small, Na suggested. Choose one problem that your empire faces and let a human team work on it. If we succeed, consider expanding the cooperation. If we fail, you can always return to your original plan. What kind of problem? Vextar asked. Na thought about everything she had learned about the Cytherian Empire during her preparation for this mission. One issue had come up repeatedly in their intelligence reports, the Valdari Rebellion, she said. Your forces have been fighting the Valdari resistance for 20 years without achieving a decisive victory. Let humans try a diplomatic approach. The arena fell silent. The Valdari Rebellion was a sensitive topic for the Cytherians. It was the one conquest that had never been completed, the one people who continued to resist despite overwhelming odds. The Valdari are fanatics, Vextar said. They prefer death to surrender. No amount of diplomacy will change their minds. Perhaps, Na agreed. But what have you lost by trying? A few weeks of human effort versus decades of continued warfare. If diplomacy fails, you can always resume military operations. Zulkan stepped forward again. The Valdari campaign has cost us more ships and warriors than any other operation in recent history. If there is even a small chance that War Prime Na's approach could succeed, we should consider it. Na could see that some of the other Cytherians were nodding in agreement. The Valdari Rebellion was a drain on resources that many of them would be happy to see ended through any means necessary. Very well, Vextar said after another long pause. You will have your chance to prove human worth. But there will be conditions. What conditions? Na asked. You will work under Cytherian supervision. You will have access to our diplomatic resources, but all final decisions will be approved by Cytherian authorities. And if your approach fails, humanity will accept conquest without further resistance. Na felt her heart skip a beat. The stakes had just become much higher. Success would mean alliance and a bright future for humanity. Failure would mean the end of human independence. But she also understood that this was likely the best offer she would ever get. Vextar was giving her a chance to prove human worth, but he was also protecting himself against the possibility that she might succeed too well. I accept those conditions, Na said. When do we begin? Immediately, Vextar replied. A ship will take you and your team to the Valdari system. You will have 30 days to achieve what our armies have failed to accomplish in 20 years. Na nodded. 30 days was not much time to end a decades-long conflict, but it would have to be. Enough. She looked up at her team in the viewing area and saw mixtures of excitement and worry on their faces. Park Tae looked especially concerned. He knew better than anyone how difficult the Valdari situation was. The rebels had been fighting for their independence for so long that hatred of the Catherians was part of their culture. But Na also saw something else in her team's expressions. They believed in her. They had watched her do the impossible once already today. They were ready to follow her into whatever challenge came next. There is one more thing, Vexstar added. As War Prime, you will have authority over certain Catherian forces assigned to the Valdari operation. Use them wisely. Your fellow War Primes will be watching to see if you deserve the rank you have earned. Na understood the unspoken message. She would be leading Catherian warriors who had probably never taken orders from a non-Catherian before. Gaining their respect would be as difficult as winning the combats had been. I understand, Na said. I will not disappoint you. See that you do not, Vexstar replied. The future of both our species may depend on your success or failure. As the crowd began to disperse, Na remained in the arena for a few minutes longer. She looked around at the space where she had changed the course of galactic history in just 2 hours. The bloodstains on the floor, the damaged platforms, and the scattered weapons all told the story of what had happened here. When she had entered this arena, she had been a human diplomat hoping to negotiate humanity's survival. Now she was a Catherian War Prime with the authority to command armies and the responsibility to prove that her species deserved to be free. The real test was just beginning. 6 months later, Na stood on the bridge of the Catherian warship Sovereign's Wrath, watching as the last Valdari rebel stronghold powered down its weapons. The surrender signal flashed across the communications screen, marking the end of a 20-year conflict that had cost both sides countless lives. Impossible, muttered War Captain Krelva, the Catherian officer who had been assigned to oversee Na's mission. How did you do it? Na smiled as she watched Valdari and Catherian negotiators boarding shuttles to finalize the peace agreement. We listened to what they actually wanted instead of assuming we knew. The solution had been simpler than anyone expected, but it required thinking beyond traditional Catherian approaches. The Valdari had never been fighting for complete independence. They had been fighting for the right to govern themselves according to their own cultural values while remaining part of the larger galactic community. The Catherians had spent 20 years trying to force the Valdari to adopt Catherian culture and government structures. The humans had suggested a different approach, autonomous governance within the Empire. The Valdari could keep their own leaders and traditions as long as they contributed to imperial defense and trade. It had taken weeks of careful negotiation and several near breakdowns in the talks, but eventually both sides had agreed to try the new arrangement. The Valdari got to preserve their way of life, and the Catherians got a peaceful solution to their most expensive ongoing conflict. The Emperor will be pleased, Krelva said. This success has already impressed the other war primes. They are beginning to see the value of human methods. Na nodded, but her mind was already focused on larger issues. The Valdari success had been just the beginning. Over the past 6 months, human diplomatic teams had been working on similar problems throughout the Catherian Empire. Not every mission had succeeded, but enough had worked to prove that cooperation was more effective than conquest in many situations. War Prime Na, called Sol from her communications station. We are receiving a message from Earth, the first cultural exchange group has arrived at the Catherian capital. Na felt a surge of satisfaction. The cultural exchange program had been her idea, designed to help both species understand each other better. Young humans were learning about Catherian history and technology, while young Catherians were discovering human art, philosophy, and scientific methods. The program was controversial among hardliners on both sides, but it was already producing results. Human scientists working with Catherian Engineers had developed new technologies that neither species could have created alone. Cytherian warriors training with human martial artists were learning new combat techniques that made them even more effective. Any problems? Na asked. Actually, quite the opposite, Sol replied with a grin. The Cytherian students are fascinated by human music. Apparently, they had never considered that sound could be art as well as communication. Na laughed. The cultural differences between humans and Cytherians continued to surprise everyone involved. But those differences were becoming strengths rather than sources of conflict. War Prime, Kay said, approaching from the tactical station where he had been monitoring the final stages of the Valdari negotiation. We have another message. Supreme Overlord Vexstar wants to meet with you when we return to the capital. Na raised an eyebrow. Did he say what about? No, but the tone suggested. It was important. Possibly very important. No wonder what Vexstar wanted to discuss. Their relationship had remained formal and somewhat strained despite her successes. He respected her achievements but still seemed uncomfortable with the changes she represented. 3 days later, Na stood once again in the throne room where her incredible journey had begun. But this time, she was not a desperate diplomat begging for her species' survival. She wore the crystal armor of a Cytherian war prime and carried the authority that came with her rank. Vexstar sat on his black crystal throne, but his demeanor was different than it had been during their first meeting. He no longer looked at her with contempt or amusement. Instead, his expression was thoughtful and perhaps even slightly respectful. War Prime Na, he said as she approached. Your success with the Valdari rebellion has been noted throughout the Empire. Other war primes are requesting human advisors for their own problem situations. I am pleased that our methods are proving useful, Na replied carefully. More than useful, Vexstar corrected. Revolutionary? You have shown us approaches to governance and conflict resolution that we never considered. The Empire is becoming more efficient and more stable because of these innovations. Na waited for him to continue. She could sense that he was building up to something significant. There is a matter of great importance that I wish to discuss with you, Vexstar said. Our scout ships have detected signs of another spacefaring civilization beyond our current borders, the hegemony of Telmora. They appear to be as powerful as our own empire, possibly more so. Na felt a chill run down her spine. Are they hostile? Unknown. We have had no direct contact yet. But their expansion pattern suggests that they will eventually come into conflict with our territory. When that happens, we must be prepared. What? Does this have to do with me? Na asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. Traditional Cytherian doctrine would be to prepare for war. Buell.